actually, it may be the case that it's easier to find, that people who are in the management game are actually only interested in acts that have some kind of recognition in the public domain, whether that's through YouTube or MySpace or whatever. So it's even hard to get that right now. Whereas 10 years ago and much further back than that, managers would have been more willing to take a punt. And I think that willingness has gone as well. So you even need to be your own managers, and call on. So you've got to have these fantastic and diverse skills.
I think the ambition of being signed a big deal and doing global tours is completely unrealistic. It doesn't do any of them any favours, and we should learn from that. I'd be happier playing in Bristol to people who I actually want to hear my music than in Wembley Stadium to a load of idiots.
Do you all share that view? You won't make a lot of money, but you may make a living.
Exactly, I only want a living.
I've got friends who are kind of session musicians who make a living from doing what they want to do. But you've all got different ambitions. But what you're actually flagging up is the reality of being signed to that major label and having that big, isn't as possible as it was.
It's not as good a life as it was sort of painted for artists anyway. Like, is it actually that good being flown around the world, meeting new people so impersonally the whole time, being used and exploited? Like, I'm not going for it at all. I'd love for lots of people to hear my music, I'd like to play it, but like the money, the fame.
I think with the free music scene as well, with the internet now, like it's not necessary to go with a label anymore, because you can get your stuff out there. You just gotta be consistent and use the right channels.
Well, actually, the interesting thing for me is, going back to the start of my journey, there would have been 50 independent labels focused on the kind of the UK garage scene. That was their thing, and they were making enough money to kind of get by. So it's a much more creative time, actually. And do you understand what I mean by that? That music scene was a movement. It was actually a movement. Whether you liked it or not is irrelevant, but actually culturally they had something really intriguing going on that captured a particular moment in time. And I think the independent labels are the only ones that are placed to do that, really.
Can I just bring Tristan in here? He's visiting from, he's hopefully going to come and talk to spend some time with us at college, but we were talking about this earlier and you had made some really good points, Tristan.
Sure, so my name's Tristan. I'm in an indie rock band actually in Hollywood, California, but my family lives in Bristol, so here I am just kind of visiting. We've been playing in this band for about 6 years, but we got signed to an indie label about a year and a half ago. But one thing that I've noticed, I've been playing in bands since I was 14. I'm 29 now. So back when we were 14, it was like, yeah, we got to get the record deal. We got to go out there because they'll get us distribution. They'll book us at shows. They'll do all this stuff. Now, today, our experience has been with all the infrastructure that's set up on the internet, you actually don't need a record label. And in a number of cases, a lot of my friends' bands in LA have actually turned down deals because we've realized the more that you do on your own, the more higher percentage you receive on the money that you make, right? So you're actually better off selling like 100,000 albums and controlling yourself than 1 million through a record label because you'll get a bigger chunk of the stuff you sell. And, you can get a tune-up on iTunes within half an hour. You go through tunecore.com and all of a sudden you're distributed worldwide. So the value of a record label and distribution is completely gone. You can do that completely on your own. You can book your own tours because you can make deals with booking agents on your own, so that's out the window. There's websites called Stage It where you can actually just stream your concerts worldwide, so you don't even need to leave your hometown, and people around, my family in England can watch us play in LA. So for us, we went with the deal because it just added an extra layer of someone who can go out there and talk about us all the time while we're not doing that, But percentage-wise, we just released an album, but we paid for most of it, so we've managed to retain most of the rights, and we own the masters and stuff. So that's kind of helped us out quite a bit. So I actually think it's a really, really exciting time to be in the music industry because it's allowing artists that wouldn't have ever been heard before get out there and get heard out in the world that are a little bit more avant-garde or innovative or kind of different, that I can connect to bands that are coming out of Brazil and whatnot that you never would have even heard of because they didn't get signed and the label didn't take them around. So
I was thinking it's more interesting, much more interesting time for the listener.
right, exactly.
As well,
yeah.
for the music fan. You know, we can pick up stuff so easily.
Yeah. I mean, the hardest part at this point really is that since, you know, all you need is a MacBook and Ableton or Pro, I think the hardest part is actually the in-between stage of there's a lot more music getting created, a lot more people listening to music, but how do you sift out the really crappy stuff and sift through to the stuff that's worth hearing, you know? Is Pitchfork.com a legitimate source of quality? Filtering, I don't know.
But I think filtering, you know, in the next 10 years will work itself out. It's still early days and it's kind of anyone's game, and filters will come up that will become trustworthy.
But the interesting thing for me with these, if these major labels were kind of as good as they should be for their size, they would be shaping the future technology.
Right. Yeah.
And actually, they're not at all.
Yeah. I mean,
It's such an old-fashioned, outmoded model that they have, and there's something about the world we're in now and pace and needing to get to the market quickly. And actually, these majors, you know, it takes you layer of layer. You know, I just worked with Sony once, and actually, it took me 3 weeks of meeting with people to actually meet the person I needed to meet.
yeah.
You know, which is incredibly frustrating. And the world wants things quickly, very, very quickly.
Yeah. So I mean, for us, as far as income goes, like, you're absolutely correct. We just give all our music out. There's no money to be made on record sales whatsoever.
Yeah.
For us, it's going on tour and playing shows, but it's also placements. So we have a couple publishing deals that are like trying to get into TV shows and what. And the cool thing about that is you record a song, it gets placed in a TV show, you just get this big fat check for 50 grand or whatever, and that like funds the band for the next year or so to go out and go on tour and whatnot. So.
I know now. Some of you who are closer to my age will you know this chap who is Mungo Jerry in the summertime. Do any of you know that? I did some work with a guy who was his publisher, and it was that was when was that 60s? Yeah. Apparently, to this day, that guy is getting a check for like 40 grand a year. To this day, because that tune is used internationally on so many different adverts and this, that, and the other.
It's like that Hugh Grant film, isn't it? You know, about a boy. If you write a Christmas #1, you are made for life. You can live on your royalties for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
One track.
And it's the publishing income. That's the key thing. But we'll talk about that next time.
I've got a friend who gets £6 a time his tunes played on his local radio station. Do you know any laws on that? On like radio play, it's a local radio station, but it's partly owned by BBC. So
Will it be done through the PRS? Right. It will be done through the Performing Rights Society, and that. I imagine that's who he's getting his check.
Is there differing rates nationwide, and like how's the best way to get the most out of that?
I'm not sure.
It's really going to PRS because you get a set rate for going on local radio compared to a set rate for being on national, you know, Radio 1, and you can't negotiate that. That is a set fee, and PRS will collect that money for you and then pass it on to you. But you can only do that if you join PRS. They're like the big collection agency in this country.
And when we talk about music publishing next time, we'll get into the detail around the PRS. Anything else? Have I bored you?
Is there going to be a next time?
I'm going to do publishing next time. Well, I've got to think of a few more stories. And I'll tell you at the next time how it all ended.
A bit more Joby Lee.
It's amazing, you know. But actually, for her, she was a fantastic girl. She's from South Africa, grew up in quite a poor family, and she came over here, kind of did bar work, that kind of thing. A management company snapped her up, got her into Independiente, and she was being promised great things. And can you imagine being jetted off to New York and working with this huge, you know, hip-hop megastar, and actually they put one single out, and they say, actually, the market reaction was so bad, we're just not going to bother with it.
What's she doing now?
No idea. There's a research
Did she
project
get any money?
for it. I don't know.
Did she get any money at all?
No, because it was a development deal. They kind of gave her kind of pocket money, you know, to keep her going, and probably paid for a flat for her or something. But if you think, it's about expectations, isn't it? In your mind, if you can see all this money going out the door, being spent on producers, you'll think, gosh, I'm made, and look at this investment they're making.
It's just be like dropped and said no.
Yeah.
She got a big rubbish, isn't
Brings a tear to your eye.
Inspiration for the next song.
That's happened to.
Yeah.
And they'll get wardrobes bought for them and jewellery and taken to swanky restaurants, put up in nice hotels, and you get on a roll and you think it's happening, and then bam, it's gone.
And I can remember with her once, we took her, she supported Mary J. Blige, you know, a huge American act, and so you think, if you're supporting someone like that, you're thinking you're on your way, aren't you?
It is.
You know,
kind of thing they're almost at that level that can't really go wrong.
yeah, but you know, because remember that first single, number 45, slated by radio. You know, even the pluggers are saying, can't do much with this. You know. And actually, the first that was the first single that I played you. And some of the other stuff was better. It was better, not much, but it was better.
Is she trapped in this deal, or can she go get something else?
Because there wasn't a deal. I mean, it was a development thing. She could go and get something else. They will still own the music, obviously. The thing about royalties, what the record company is, they own that version of the song. The mechanical rights, okay? So they own that version. Of course, the song will be owned by the writer and their publisher. Yeah? So obviously, if you write a song, the thing you really want to happen is for that song to be covered time and time and time again. Yeah, because you're going to get money. But that version of the song that you record for the company is what they actually